It's recording.
Anywho, first of all, fantastic feeling to be back here. I graduated 3 years ago in May. I was a part of the supply chain cohort. May 13 is when we started. Awesome time. You guys are in a very good place. Believe me, you will see the value of this MBA once you start working. A lot of people will probably feel while doing the course that biggest mistake of your life. But believe me, the day you join industry, you will realize how much you've changed since the day you've come in. I keep feeling that every day, and that's the reason why I try and stay in touch with the college as much as possible, because it's really important that you guys stay in touch even after you graduate, because it helps. It helps. Well, I also want to thank the alumni relations team. Sudha, who sits in Bombay, she's been a great help in setting this up. Meghna, of course, she's been coordinating with me to get the session underway. The dean of our supply chain stream, Dr. Asarkar, I've had amazing interactions with him over my time in Singapore. And please pick his brains when you guys go there. It's very important that you engage with him because he's very knowledgeable. He might not come across as the most easily approachable person, but believe me, if you spend enough time with him, if you talk to him, you learn a lot more about supply chain and you'll understand a lot more about the industry by just interacting with him. That's a really good experience. If you guys can get him to be the guides for your project, push for it. You'll learn a lot. He's a difficult person to please, but it's well worth the experience, believe me. Right? With that said, let's get started. This session is titled A to Z, or A to Z for those who prefer it that way. Supply chain in the Amazon era. Now, why am I talking about supply chain? Why am I talking about what Amazon is doing? The answer is very, very simple. Amazon today and for the foreseeable future is the most dangerous company in the world. Is the most dangerous company. And I mean dangerous, not like, they're a threat to your existence. No, they're not. But they're a threat to other industries. And we'll see examples and examples of it as we go ahead in this session. First, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Venkat. I work in this company called Midcom. They've been hiring from SPGen for about 6 years now. And whoever they've hired till now is still there. I work as part of their mobility division. They have their own brand of mobile phones called as Ferro Mobiles, which we sell in Africa and now in the Middle East as well. I basically head the product management division for that brand. I also manage supply chain, logistics, certain aspects of operations, and business strategy. Now, this is my actual profile. Yeah. Let that sink in.
Oven cleaning expert.
Yes. For people who live in Dubai, they know what this means.
Yeah.
So this QR code is basically a link to my LinkedIn profile and my contact details. So if anybody is interested, please scan this QR code later. I'll leave this up later. Anyways, yeah, this is me. This is me in 1989. So yeah, hence the winner of the Big Eyes competition. Anyways, all right. For those who worked in supply chain or those who haven't worked in supply chain, what do you think is your main challenge in managing a supply chain? Anybody who has any thoughts, please feel free. Just raise your hand so that I know what you talk. Yeah. Very technical term. Simple, one word answer. You're all right with parts.
Supply product from here to there.
One word answer. One sentence. One word.
Operations.
Cost, delay,
Quality.
Discrepancies.
All this and more, yes. But to put it in one word, the biggest problem in managing a supply chain is this. People who worked in supply chain before, I read somebody's profile who's added me on LinkedIn who's worked at Damco in their Kambuza. That's you, right? You worked in hardcore logistics, basically. Am I right? How are the processes like in Damco? Very set. There's a very defined process for everything.
Yeah.
You have to follow that. There is no scope for deviating from the norm. And that is supply chain's biggest problem. They don't adapt, they don't innovate, they don't upscale. And now more than ever that's important because of the pace of innovation. The pace of innovation is so furious that supply chains cannot stay the same even for 10 years now. You know, there used to be a time when a process used to be, so the assembly line was introduced when? What, 80 years back? Right? 80, no, actually 100 years back in fact. 100 years, this is the 100th year of the assembly line. Yeah? Assembly lines did not change until the 60s and the 70s. Until Toyota basically came into the picture. That's when they revolutionized the assembly line. But that was the time frame of innovation at that point in time. 60, 70 years is when you had like a comfort zone for 60, 70 years. You can set a process and you can expect it to continue. Now, I don't think so. 4 years, 5 years, maybe. What happened to BlackBerry? Who uses a BlackBerry? Please tell me. Anybody here? There you go. And I asked the same question 5 years back, a lot of hands would have been up, mine included. Right? What happened to Nokia?
They did not adapt to change.
Change. They don't deal with change. Supply chain's biggest problem is change. Why have I taken Amazon as a case study here? Because Amazon is the single biggest entity today that is attacking every business function, that is attacking every operational function in a supply chain context, completely turning it on its head and basically ensuring that they're future-proof, but the competition isn't. That is Amazon's single biggest advantage, and that is why I keep saying that Amazon is the single most dangerous company in the entire world. In fact, I do feel that Amazon will be the world's first trillion-dollar company. Apple's worth about $560 billion today. When iPhone 8 launches, it'll probably be about $650, $680 billion. Google is worth about the same, around $500 billion is what Google is worth. Walmart is worth about $230 billion. So why is this slide relevant? This is basically the number of Amazon employees from 2017 to 2016. I know the print isn't very clear, but 2007 they had 17,000 employees, and in 2016 they have 341,000 employees. That was 2016 numbers. And now in 2017, I think they've added another 40,000 people more. Right? Just by looking at this number, nothing really comes to mind. They say, yeah, the company's grown in 10 years, headcount has grown, basically. Right? Let's look at some other numbers now. Amazon has over 350 million active Amazon accounts. These are people who regularly buy from Amazon. Actual users, not dormant, not dead accounts. Actual usage is of about 350 million unique accounts. The average shopping value of an Amazon customer is about $320 per year. Right? Which roughly translates into what? About $100 odd billion. That's just the value of the goods purchased and sold on Amazon.com. Right? The current market capitalization of Amazon, actually this is as of 2016 December, was 410 billion. It's about 450 billion now, from what I remember. Annual revenue was $136 billion. Net profit, 1.15%. A shitty investment in any book. As an investor, if you value a company at $410 billion and your return on investment is basically $1.6 billion, that's a shitty investment in any book. But why is Amazon the darling of investors today? It's because of this. Amazon has what? About 400,000 employees on an average today. $450 billion is what it's worth. Which means every Amazon employee is worth $1.2 million. That is the value of one employee of Amazon in the market today. How many companies you know can boast of this number? Not a lot. Reference to context, Walmart, worth $230 billion, has 2.3 million employees. Which means every employee is worth what? $100,000. 1/10 of what an Amazon employee is worth. Interesting? Have a look at this. How many of you are customers of Amazon? How many people have Amazon accounts? Fantastic. See? Do you know what Prime Day was? You have someone offers crazy deals on electronics, 70% off, 60% off, this, that. Prime customers. CNBC estimated that the US lost about $10 billion of productivity on Prime Day. $10 billion a day. What if there was a Prime Day every day of the year? $3.6 trillion wiped out from the US economy. Roughly put the combined GDP of Australia and India. Yeah? Gives you some food for thought. Right? Now, why is this called from A to Z? Like I told you guys, Amazon is one company that systematically attacked every business function and every major operational function to completely revolutionize supply chain and completely change retail as we know it. What I'm going to talk about today is not what Amazon has done. It is what Amazon is doing to completely turn things around in maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I don't know. Right? How many of you have thought of a career as a drone operator? Nobody? That's going to be a profession in the next 5 years. And a very essential supply chain function. And I'll tell you why. This is what Amazon is working on now. These are things that Amazon is working on. They have piloted these things. There are pilot projects that have been launched. IoT. We keep hearing these things, right? Internet of Things. IT guys. Right? Your next big thing. Cashless transactions. There's, Google Pay, there's Apple Pay, Samsung Pay. Right? Amazon's gone one step ahead. They've done something called as Amazon Go. I'll show you a video on this and then it becomes more clear. Home shopping solutions. You can now shop from the comfort of your home without even having to step out for anything you need that's available on Amazon. They've completely automated their warehouses. They've automated warehouses to an extent that their storage capacity in warehouses has doubled. You worked in Damco. You know what doubling your storage capacity in a warehouse means. You know exactly why that's important. Imagine if you could store 10 million SKUs or 10 million units in a particular warehouse, and then from tomorrow, somebody tells you you can store 20 million units in the same warehouse. What does that mean in cost? Unbelievable savings, right? They're working on advanced transportation. Drone deliveries are a reality. They've done that in the UK. Autonomous trucks. Amazon is still working on it. But there are companies like Otto and Uber who've actually done this. So I'm going to show you a video on that as well. Prime Air Cargo. Damco is in trouble. DHL is in trouble. FedEx is in trouble. UPS is in trouble because Amazon is now going to launch 40 aircrafts of their own to manage their own logistics. That's a fleet. And that is a service that they can offer to anybody. Why just limited to their own ecosystem, right? AI. Again, IT. This whole session is IT. Basically, it's not a supply chain session. It's an IT session, right? AI. How many of you have heard of Alexa? Very nice. So you know what they're doing with Alexa, right? They're basically creating a home assistant which will help you live your everyday life. Who would have thought you need an assistant to live your everyday life? But you do. They've created the need for it and they have the ecosystem for it. Yeah? Data analytics. Amazon, I think, is the single largest consumer experiment in the entire world. They've got 23 years of data about customer behavior. What better source to understand customer behavior than this? You know, they've started out leasing, they basically started selling their data to universities for psychological research. That's a business in itself, right? Selling data to universities, research institutes. Anytime they're launching a messaging app, I read this today morning, that's why I included it in the slide. Anytime there's a messaging app, it's a B2B, a business-to-business messaging app. They're going to try and leverage it as a replacement for Skype in video conferences. For guys who worked in IT, Cisco, WebEx, this is a replacement for that. They've done forward integration. How many of you know what the concept of forward integration is? Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, it is going downstream for your products.
Closer to the customer. Yeah, so if you're a factory, you open up a shop. That's essentially what forward integration is. Backward integration is the other way around. Yeah, so they've started doing that as well. They've started opening brick and mortar stores and they acquired Whole Foods. How many of you know about this acquisition? This was big news a couple of weeks back. $13.5 billion. Yeah? We all know why they did it. We'll discuss this a little more in detail in the slides ahead. One of my favorite slides in the presentation. It's called What a Waste of Time. Now, I've taken this data from multiple sources. This is not a research, this is just an interpretation of the data that I've seen. Average time spent in a checkout line. So if you've gone to a supermarket ever in your life, you know what a checkout line is and you know how frustrating a checkout line can be. The person in front of you will be the slowest person in the entire shop. By default, Murphy's Law will play. Right? So the average time spent in a checkout line is about 4 minutes and 52 seconds. Yeah? This is from research conducted by World Bank. This has been corroborated by Apple, by Google, by research institutes, by, I don't know, a few more sources. Yeah? Assuming, right? We assume, let's, for the sake of assumption, we make 4 trips to the grocery store every month, once every week. Reasonable assumption? Yeah? Average time that one person will spend in a checkout line every year is about 233.6 minutes. Around 234 minutes, which is about 4 hours of your life in a year you are spending in a checkout line at a grocery store. The world population is 7 billion. You assume that 10% of the world's population has access to supermarkets. So India, China, emerging markets put together, EU, UK, and the US, North America, basically. So 700 million people, a very reasonable assumption, I think. Right? Which roughly translates to 2.725 billion hours lost because people stand in checkout lines every year. There is no reaction. What am I supposed to assume from this? You just realized that you contribute to wastage of $2.725 billion hours per year. That's man hours lost. What could you do? What could you possibly do if you could recover this time? Yeah? Interesting, isn't it? This is what Amazon did.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store, so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
The store is operational already in Seattle. Amazon headquarters. It's operational, working. A lot of issues because the technology isn't foolproof yet. So you've had a lot of instances where people have just walked out and nothing's happened. So, yeah. But this will become mainstream. The technology will improve and it will become mainstream. Right? So you see where the world is headed. IT guys, you guys are going to be in supply chain more than the supply chain guys are. Yeah? What's the most frustrating part about shopping for you guys? Sorry? Choice. I mean, choice or lack of it? Which one? You have too much choice these days. Too many choices. Okay. What else? Crowd. Okay. Fair point. What else?
Time.
Okay. Also. Okay. So, right, fair point. What if I were to say shopping itself is the worst part about shopping? Why should I go shop? Right? You've seen the heat outside? Yeah? I come back home, 7:30 evening, usually. My cab drops me off at Burjuman station, and my wife basically calls me, tells me, listen, I'm going to be a little late today. Why don't you just go to Carrefour, and I'm sending you a list on WhatsApp. Pick up these things and come. That's the last thing I want to do after I've sat in 2-hour-long strategy meetings, after basically listening to my boss shout at me for an hour, me fighting with my suppliers all morning, and my sales guys fighting with me all afternoon. That's the last thing I want to do. So Amazon listened. Amazon heard this. Amazon heard me cry. And they said, we'll solve this problem for you, Venkat. Don't worry about it. We've done something earlier, we're just taking it forward now. So have a look at this next video.
Ask all recipes for a shrimp pasta recipe.
My recommendation is champagne shrimp and pasta recipe. Main ingredients are shrimp, mushrooms, plum tomatoes, cream, and Parmesan cheese.
Mushrooms. Tomatoes. How many ounces are in a cup?
1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces.
Buy white wine from Prime now.
Your favorite white wine will be here between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m.
Dim lights to 70%. To old friends.
Right. For $20, I don't have to pick up my wife's phone call. Small price to pay for big comfort. Yeah? Already in place, already available. You can buy this on Amazon UK, Amazon US, and they're launching it in India early next year. This is going to be available. $20. Nothing. 1,500 bucks, 1,500 rupees, Indian rupees. That's what it costs. 60 dirhams, 65, 70 dirhams basically. That's what it costs. Who wouldn't pay for such a service? I would definitely. Any given day. Yeah? Another one of my favorite slides. It's called Speed of Destruction. Now, why is this slide here? We're talking about technology, we're talking about all the amazing things that Amazon is doing. But why is this slide here? This is basically to tell you guys how they've improved over the years. Right? How they've improved over the years. In 2016, Amazon's total expense on shipping, which means your packaging material, which means the logistics costs, paying your freight forwarders, paying your courier companies, the packaging material, the foam, the unnecessary nonsense paper that's there inside a big bag for a device this small. Yeah, all those things. It cost them $5 billion in 2016. That was their expense of just the material, like the shipping costs. Yeah? Their average delivery time in 2010 was 5 days for any item that you ordered on Amazon. Yeah? I moved to the US in 2011 for a 1-year-long project. By the time I left the US, the delivery efficiency had improved by 2 days. They could deliver any product in 3 days on an average. This is the global average for Amazon. 2014, 58 hours. 2016, 48 hours. 99% of their products can now be delivered in 2 days or less. That's their global average. For anybody who is in supply chain and logistics, when a company has managed to cut down 3 days from their delivery time, you have won your battle then and there. If there's any company that manages to do this, that company is going to be the next big thing. This is Flipkart's main problem. They do not have the delivery efficiency of what Amazon does. No other e-commerce company in the entire world has the delivery efficiency. And just think of the number of countries that Amazon is in and the number of products they sell every year. Average delivery time is 48 hours. They're predicting that by 2020 they will cut it down to 12 hours within a day. Half a day is what they're going to take. They've improved their efficiency in 10 years by 4.5 days. That is an impossible statistic. That has never happened in the history of supply chain ever. Ever. Yeah? What else are they doing? And how are they achieving this efficiency? That's what we're going to see in the next few slides. They've employed robots. You know, when autonomous, this word autonomous, self-learning, self-driven, when these were terms being thrown around, Amazon had already implemented robots in their warehouses. I'm going to show you a video of these Kiva robots. Kiva Robotics is a company that Amazon has bought. They manufacture these robots especially for any warehousing company anywhere in the world. Yeah? They've got about 45,000 robots as of today. They're predicting that by 2020 there will be more than 100,000 robots in service all around the globe. They're talking about doubling this number. They've already done drone deliveries in the UK. There's a video of that as well that I'll show you guys. They plan to develop autonomous trucks to manage their delivery. You don't even need a driver anymore. And honestly, when I say this, drivers are a huge part of the cost involved in logistics. Huge part, believe me. Because when you hire a driver, it's not just the driver. You're paying him salary, that's one thing. You have to pay for his health insurance. You have to pay for allowances. All these things put together add a very significant amount of cost. They want to completely take that out of the equation. And as I told you, they are basically launching a cargo line of their own, which means UPS, FedEx, DHL, better watch out. This is a video on Kiva robots in an Amazon fulfillment center in California. Actual footage from the warehouse. These are your pallets that you use in any warehouse. This is a modified version of a pallet that Amazon uses. The robots weigh about, I think, 350 kgs, if I'm not wrong. And they can lift up to 1.5 tons of weight. You know what this does? This eliminates the need for vehicles in a warehouse. You don't need forklifts. You don't need a sorting area. You don't need a weighing tray. Nothing. And these are things that occupy a lot of space. And they require manpower. All you need is one guy standing at a computer terminal, punching in the orders. The robots bring you the packages. All you do is just pick it up from the pallet, put it on a sorting tray, put it on a conveyor belt, and off it goes. This has basically ensured, this is what the guy does. This is what a warehouse employee has to do now. There's no need for a forklift, there's no need for a crane, there's no need for a ladder, nothing. So in the same warehouse that used to house about 10 million units of goods, they managed to fit in 21 million units. And this efficiency was achieved in less than a year after the robots were implemented. In less than a year. And you know, it's a simple technology that these robots use. They use QR codes to navigate. So QR code basically tells a robot where they are in the entire warehouse and where they need to go. Such a simple technology which is so beautifully implemented. This is real. This has happened already. Yeah? Next video. Drone deliveries. This is what I was talking about.
Amazon is developing a service to use drones to safely deliver packages to customers in 30 minutes or less. It's called Prime Air. We've started a new private trial for customers in the Cambridge area of England, and on December 7th, we completed our first delivery. Customers will choose from a selection of thousands of items tucked away in a Prime Air fulfillment center located just over the horizon from their homes. We have been operating fulfillment centers for quite a while now, but this one is unlike all the rest. These modest-looking buildings contain innovative Prime Air technology. Here's how it works. Moments after receiving the order, an electrically powered Amazon drone makes its way down an automated track and then rises into the sky with the customer's package on board. These drones are autonomous. From takeoff to landing and return, they operate completely on their own. Cruising quietly below 400 feet, carrying packages up to 5 pounds, and guided by GPS, our systems are designed to find their destinations safely. Within 30 minutes of placing the order, the customer receives their package. For this initial trial, customers can choose from the latest tech gadgets to their dog's favorite biscuits. We will use the data gathered during this beta test and the feedback provided by customers to expand the private trial to more customers over time. We're starting with 2 customers now, and in the coming months, we'll offer participation to dozens of customers living within several miles of our UK facility, and then growing to hundreds more. After that, well, it'd be easy to say, the sky's the limit. But that's not exactly true anymore, is it?
This is what I was talking about. Careers as a drone operator will be very sought after in the next few years. Think about it. This is not speculation. This is actually being done. This exists. But supply chains all around the world are oblivious to it. Nobody wants to believe that it's true, but it is going to happen. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years. I don't know. Could be. We're going to see another video now. This one's on autonomous trucks. Now, Amazon is still working on this technology, but Otto, a subsidiary of Uber, has done this already. Imagine you can actually shift something from one location to another without the help of a driver. This is an actual video, again, not simulated information. Have a look.
I got into truck driving in 2007. I like to travel the country. That's one of the reasons drivers get into the industry. They want to see the country. It's a big, beautiful place.
Anheuser-Busch is the largest brewer in the United States. We ship over 1.2 million truckloads each year. We are always looking for new innovations in technology. Otto's trucks are the next area of transportation innovation.
The driver would still be involved with the pickup, loading the freight, making sure it's secure in the back of the vehicle. And then once you're on the interstate, one switch and it's driving itself down the road.
Well, Otto's technology is all about making the road safer. It's like a train on software rails. And so when you will see a vehicle driving with nobody in it, you'll know that it's very unlikely to get in a collision.
I proclaimed to one of the technicians, I said, I don't think I could have done that better myself. that was an interesting moment.
We knew we wanted an iconic American brand that was passionate about their products. Budweiser was a perfect partner. For me, I think the most important things that computers are going to do in the next 10 years is drive trucks and cars. So it's great to be at the forefront of that.
Just imagine that you're driving on a highway, when you pass by a truck, and you see nobody in the driver's seat. That is going to freak the hell out of a lot of people. But that's going to be the reality in the days to come. And just on a side note, Anthony Lewandowski recently got fired from Uber because of a patent infringement issue with Google. So Google has this spin-off called as Waymo, which is into autonomous driving. So the accusation is that somebody from Anthony Lewandowski's team basically stole copyrighted programs from Google and then used it in Uber. So he's no longer with the company, but yeah, that tells you that's something that people did not think about. Automating trucks. Everybody's talking about Tesla, everybody's talking about driverless cars, Faraday futures that went bust. Then, GM is coming out with its own driverless car. BMW already put out a concept car. Merck did it. Rolls-Royce is talking about it. Nobody thought about trucks. This guy was the first person to do that. And Uber basically purchased that company. And this is going to be the next big thing. This is going to create more disruption in the supply chain. Imagine if you could have a situation where your truck basically drives itself. Your driver does not have to stop anywhere for the entire route of the journey, right? Say you have to deliver a shipment from one end of India, from the east coast of India to the west coast of India. That's 4,500 kilometers on an average. You don't have to stop anywhere except for fuel. How much money will that save? How much time will that save? Even if you can shave off 10 hours per delivery, the savings are massive, right? This is going to happen. This will happen. This has already started happening. It's going to become mainstream. So, demand mapping, you'll have to factor this in. Your simulations will be, what if I use a driver versus going in for a driverless system? What will be my cost-benefit analysis? That's what you'll have to do with demand mapping. So how does this impact? The cost of your goods go down because you're saving money. Better value for customers, right? But this also means jobs are under threat. So consider alternative careers. Bottom line, right? One more video. This is the Prime Air cargo fleet of planes that Amazon has launched. 40 planes. They're basically starting a logistics company to kill FedEx, kill DHL, kill UPS, who are their biggest 3PL partners. And what's more, they will offer their services to other companies. It's a separate business line. Yeah?
Amazon has their own transportation services for quite a long time, right? Amazon has their transportation services.
The trucks, yes. Ships, yes. Cargo planes, first time. They don't own cargo planes. I mean, they didn't own cargo planes until recently. Trucks, of course. They had some trucks that they used, that they had in their own fleet. Ships, yes. Cargo ships are something that they use to transport goods from China and Asia and all these other places to US. Yes. But having cargo flights changes a lot of things. It just speeds up your delivery. You don't have to pass that cost on to the customer because that's an in-house cost. You factor it in as a part of your operational expenses. And then that gives more value to the customer. Prime Air is new. I know what you're talking about. They have a separate company called as Amazon Logistics Services. It's a 3PL company, but that caters exclusively to in-house clientele. They don't offer these services outside as of yet. Their trucks can't be used. I mean, they're not currently being used by other companies. Because Amazon is a competitor at this point in time to Walmart and all these other companies, right? So yeah, so you're right, they've had the logistics company for a while, but this is basically making it into a full service 3PL.
So others can take this service as well.
What stops them from doing it? I mean, the ramifications of this thing are huge. You know what this helps Amazon do? This helps them transport anything from anywhere at their discretion. Pharmacies, like pharmaceutical material. Amazon can sell pharmaceutical material now because they have their own plane. Because pharmaceutical cargo logistics is one of the most expensive forms of logistics that you can offer in the world. The margins are staggering. Amazon can do this in-house. Yeah? So the aftermath, this is what I was talking about. Why I showed you a series of videos is because they're all connected. They all have implications on the overall supply chain of any enterprise, any organization. They have a reduced dependency on 3PL companies now. They don't have to hire UPS for their deliveries. If drones can do the deliveries for them, they don't have to hire a truck, they don't have to hire a van for local deliveries. If they have their own fleet of cargo planes, they can do whatever the hell they want. Ship anything from anywhere to anywhere. Reduce fuel costs due to automation. Like I was talking about, your truck doesn't have to stop. It controls itself on its own. The fuel efficiency is always at its peak in an autonomous system. The fuel efficiency is at its highest because it doesn't repeatedly change gears like how manual drivers do. They don't have to stop, they don't have to slow down, they don't have to rest, nothing. And this is what I was talking about. Amazon currently is B2C, business to consumer. They're selling to end customers. What stops them from leveraging their capabilities to completely open up a B2B version of the Amazon website itself? Right? They can transport heavy machinery. I want to set up a factory in India. I can order my machinery from Amazon if I know what I want to order. UAE has this thing about about having the world's most exotic pets. Right? You guys have seen this in the news. You guys have seen a lot of email forwards, like somebody walking with a leopard at JBR. Yeah? Lions in their backyard, peacocks. They're not native animals. Amazon can offer services to basically ferry these animals using their own cargo fleet.
They've already started automotive tools in India.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know that, yeah? Heavy machinery, right? IKEA. How many of you guys have been to IKEA? Right? IKEA does not need a warehouse now. They can use an Amazon fulfillment center. They just need to set up a shop. You basically connect to IKEA, the IKEA Amazon store. Order an entire furniture set. You just have to go see the furniture set, right? IKEA does not have to store it in their warehouse. It's so much cheaper for them. It's cheaper for the customer. And IKEA does not have to worry about logistics. The logistics cost basically becomes zero. Think about it. So in India, you have a lot of startups, Urban Ladder, Pepperfry. Same concept. They don't use their own warehouses. They have a 3PL who handles their merchandise for them. They just have a physical store. Even the pricing is not put on the furniture sets in Urban Ladder. If you've been to one of their stores in India, they don't put the price tag on their items. They just have a QR code. You open the Urban Ladder app or website or whatever, you scan the QR code. That's when you know what the price is. That is just an experience store. You just go, experience how the furniture feels. If you like it, order it. It gets delivered to your house. There is no warehouse in the back. Why do you need it? Animals and livestock, this is what I was talking about. Imagine what this does to the hotel business. Marriott USA basically wants to centralize their procurement. They want to order snails from France, pulses from India, fruits from Amsterdam, seafood from Japan. Amazon. Log into the app, place your order, and at the very most, it takes 24 hours to travel from one end of the globe to the other, right? Makes so many things simple. Perishables, this is what I was talking about. Let's come to this part now. AI, for the IT guys. It's something that we keep hearing every day. Oh, AI is coming, AI is coming, AI is coming. So very few companies have leveraged AI the way Amazon has. So they have a platform called as Alexa, which I'm sure many of you guys know about. And they've launched a series of products under Alexa. One of them you saw in the video, the Amazon Dashboard. That's an Alexa product. They have an Echo. They have something called as an Amazon Echo, which is basically a speaker, right, like Google Home. Also embedded with Alexa. They've launched something called as Echo Screen, which also now has a video interface. It's basically an Echo product with a video interface for calling, chatting, the whole works. Accessing the streaming services, everything. Right? So Alexa is basically the AI system that Amazon has developed to power their customer interaction devices. So all their devices that they've designed till date are with only one objective in mind. They will keep you in the Amazon ecosystem. Why was Kindle launched? To sell Amazon books. Books which are on Amazon can be purchased through Kindle. Products which are on Amazon can be purchased through Amazon Echo. Can be purchased through the Dashboard. That's the only reason why they're making their products, to keep people in their ecosystem. Yeah? Amazon is the world's best consumer behavior experiment. I was reading an interview with the head of product engineering in Amazon. What they've said is, when the company launched in 1994, since that day till today, every click that has ever been performed on Amazon, every click, not purchase, every click has been recorded. You know what this helps you do? Anybody? How do you leverage this? Yes, please.
You can understand a pattern, behavior pattern of a customer, and then you can use it.
There you go. Fantastic. So basically what this tells you is, if customer A clicks product X, then clicks product Y, then clicks product Z, and buys X plus Y, that is a pattern. Imagine the billions of clicks that have happened in 23 years of this company's existence. They know you better than you know yourselves. No, it's a fact. You know, every time you log into an e-commerce website, what does it tell you? Customers who bought this also bought this. That's basically the front end of this algorithm. Exactly what she said. Yeah? Amazon also has a patent which helps them to deliver a product to a customer even before he's ordered. No, seriously, they do. They have it. What does this mean? If your buying patterns are set, if you buy milk 4 times every month, Amazon knows that you need milk 4 times every month. And they will order it for you. You don't even have to log into their website or their app to do it. If you're someone who changes his phone or her phone in every 2 years, they will probably send a list of phones to you asking you which one you want to be delivered. If you purchase certain products repeatedly with regularity, as more and more people are doing, because you're ordering more and more things online, Amazon knows exactly what you want even before you've asked for it. So this will be the future of supply chain. Predictive supply chain. That is going to be the future. You're going to predict what customers want and deliver it to them before they want it. Imagine if that level of perfection comes into a system. It's not possible without artificial intelligence. It's not just coding. It is something that a machine has to learn to do itself. And that is going to happen. How many of you read that Amazon has a patent for an underwater warehouse? Interesting news. Why do they need underwater warehouses? Underwater warehouses are essentially free. Essentially free. You're going to have products which are wrapped in waterproof packaging with a sensor on top. So as soon as you click something that you want, it just floats up to the top. Collect it, dispatch it. There's a drone waiting to deliver the product to your house. And you're done. Right? This is the level of innovation that Amazon is doing. That is why I call it the most dangerous company in the entire world. Because they know things, they are trying to preempt things even before anybody else is doing it. AI, all these concepts are being just talked about by a lot of companies. They're only conceptual. They have gone ahead, developed platforms which are leveraging this technology in ways which we cannot even imagine. I had an agenda slide about forward integration. Now, why is this important? What is Amazon Amazon doing? They're not content with just being the leader in the digital space. They want to be the leader in the retail space, online and offline. Online transactions currently are just 6% of the world's retail purchases at this point in time. But there will be a time when they will be 60% of the world's purchases. They're working with that vision in mind. So they opened something called as Amazon bookstores about 3 years ago. These are bookstores in high footfall areas. I'm talking about places like Central Park in New York, Piccadilly in London. These are places which are some of the most visited places in the entire world. They're opening one in Champs-Élysées in France, which is the most visited street in France. Right? And the irony is that Amazon has been responsible for a closure of a lot of these book chains. So Borders is one. I don't know if you guys have seen Borders here in some of the malls. Borders was a chain in the US. They have a Middle East subsidiary which is a separate company. But in the US, Borders shut down in 2015. The single reason attributed to their shutdown was Amazon. Because Amazon books were cheaper by about 30% on an average than at any Borders store. And the irony, the cruel fate of irony is that Amazon has basically opened a bookstore almost pretty much in the same location where there used to be a Borders store till about 4 years back. That's just rubbing it in. Yeah? This is rubbing it in. Sadistic company, that's why very dangerous. Amazon Go stores, we saw the video. Right? Why are they doing this? They want a retail presence. Right? Once that technology becomes perfect, why would anybody in their right mind go to a supermarket and wait in a checkout line? I wouldn't. Would you? There you go. And of course the big news, Whole Foods. $13.7 billion acquisition. Single largest deal made by an e-commerce company in history. Why? Why does Amazon need to purchase a retail store in its entirety? Fulfillment centers included. Why? This is the reason. Immediate access to 400 stores. And you know, Whole Foods is basically a gourmet food chain. It's not your regular sabzi mandi, it's not your regular grocery store. This is basically high millennial product. Organic. Anyone? Organic? That's Whole Foods. Right? Expensive. Whole Foods is expensive. It's not cheap. Much more expensive than your regular grocery stores.
Walmart is more expensive than Walmart.
It is way more expensive than Walmart. But what happens? Whole Foods is a very profitable company. Why? Because people on the higher income side shop at Whole Foods. Why? Health conscious, lifestyle choices, all that, right? What does this give Amazon? This just doesn't give them 400 stores. Think about the larger picture. It gives them 400 ready-to-use fulfillment centers. Every Whole Foods store is a potential fulfillment center and warehouse for Amazon. They're selling groceries now. What's to stop them from selling electronic gadgets? Whole Foods, you need not even go to Whole Foods and order anymore. You just have to walk into the store, scan what you want, it will be delivered to your place. Right? Forward integration. Potential fulfillment centers for the future. You see the big picture? You see the game? Yeah? Makes you think. Yeah? Now something very interesting is happening. When online started as a business, everybody said it's just a passing phase. Will not work, has no potential, has no future. And who was the person, who was the company, which was the entity that was shouting from the top of its voice that online is just a fad? Any guesses? Any guesses?
Future Group?
No. Walmart was basically the devil's advocate there. Like, no. Customers want to, the look and feel of a product is important. The customer experience is important. And look at what's happening now. Walmart is trying to become Amazon, and Amazon is trying to become Walmart. Yeah? What did Walmart do? When they realized that in 10 years, Walmart might not exist, what did Walmart do? They acquired the second largest e-commerce company in the world, Jet.com. Have you guys heard of Jet.com? You have, yeah?
My cousin is working there.
There you go. There you go. They were, when they were a standalone entity, they were the fastest growing e-commerce company after Amazon. They're still doing really well.
Why is Amazon going for
See, because that's what I said. Online is just 6% of the world's retail sales at this point in time. There's another 94% market share that is open. And Amazon has the money. So what this basically does is from 6%, so if Amazon contributes to roughly half of e-commerce sales in the world, what happens if Amazon adds another 3, 4, 5% market share in retail? The valuation of the company doubles.
Amazon believes that retail stores
Yeah, what they're saying is that online digital is the future, but retail will exist. There will be certain things which you cannot buy online, right? There are still certain things which you would like to see. Touch and feel, very important. Textiles. I mean, fashion has not taken off in e-commerce the way it was anticipated. Why? Because the touch and feel experience is missing. They're trying to change that with augmented reality and virtual reality and things like these. But touch and feel, textile, kapda kaisa lag raha? How do you feel the clothing material is? Is it good? Is the quality nice? Does it feel soft on my skin? Do I have an allergy to the material? Very important questions. That is something which online cannot answer completely at this point in time. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but at this point in time, online cannot answer. So they need an offline presence. And Walmart, they have the retail stores. But nobody buys from Walmart.com. So they bought Jet.com. They invested in Jerry.com. Jerry.com is basically the Chinese version of Amazon. A lot of people are under the misconception that Alibaba is the Chinese version of Amazon. It's not. Alibaba is a trading portal. It is for businesses. It's not for end consumers. JD.com, Tmall, these are B2C sites like Amazon, like Flipkart, the e-commerce, like the soup.com, right? So Jet.com was acquired, and the founder of Jet.com is now the head of e-commerce for Walmart. Right? Smart move. Walmart has the money. Walmart is a massive bloody organization, $230 billion valuation. Very profitable company with I think $13 billion is what their net profit is in 2016. It's not a small company. And Amazon has made a dent in Walmart, but they've not finished Walmart. Walmart is far from finished. And they're the only people at this point in time who have the financial resources to take on Amazon. Which is what they're doing, and they're doing a bloody good job of it. Who knows about Bonobos? Have you guys read about Bonobos? What does Bonobos do?
clothing.
No. Clothing is a very, very vague thing to describe Bonobos. Bonobos basically decided that I will solve a very important problem that the world is facing. Bonobos decided that the world needs better fitting pants. Yeah. That's Bonobos' business model. They sell pants. Shirts, caps, t-shirts, very small part of the business. But what Bonobos decided was people don't have good fitting pants. So what they did, that Bonobos was actually one of the first true marriages of offline and online. Very, very good company to follow. If you guys are interested in understanding how online and offline combination can work well together. What do Bonobos do? They basically open physical stores in very hip areas. So like the East Village in New York, it's a very nice Silicon Valley, in San Jose, in Los Angeles. So they've opened these corner retail stores, like these very mom and pop retail stores. What do? You just walk into one of their stores and you try on their pants. And then they use computer vision, the whole sensor gadgetry algorithm to basically come up with the right measurements for your pants. You try them on, and then you say, okay, this is what I want, and then you go back home. And Bonobos basically delivers it next day. That's their business model. Walmart has acquired Bonobos.com. This is a very, very profitable site. Bonobos was profitable from day one. Very profitable site. Walmart has jumped onto it. They've acquired Bonobos.com very recently. I think it was a $130 million deal. I'm not entirely sure. And then, as I told you, Amazon is starting to become Walmart. They've acquired Whole Foods. They've started Amazon Go. And they've done something now which is bothering a lot of people. You know, all these franchisees for Nike, Adidas are very, very concerned with this move. Nike has decided, Nike was one of the largest companies in the world that decided that it will not sell directly to Amazon. We will maintain our retail stores, we will maintain our retail ecosystem. Let customers come and buy a Nike shoe from our store. Even if they want to buy it online, let them come and see it in our store. But they've changed that recently, a couple of months back. Nike has decided to lease some of its portfolio on the Amazon store. Big reason to worry for people. Big reason to worry for people. Amazon has free returns. So you order a shoe, you don't like it, you return it back. Returns are free within 7 days. Again, one more company that you guys need to follow. It's a very interesting company. It's called Carter's Baby Clothing. Has anybody heard about it? You know how much it's worth? How much is it worth? Tell me.
Now this is $50.
No. I'm saying what's the worth of the company? What is the company value at? $4.6 billion. It's a baby clothing company, exclusively baby clothing company. That's all it did. They started a new line specifically to cater to Amazon Prime customers. They call it Simple Joys. This is a clothing line for babies that they've exclusively launched with Amazon. Very recently. We'll see how this goes, but yeah, this is what is happening. Brands have now started selling to Amazon because they're scared that they'll miss the bus. The brand might become irrelevant because it's not available on Amazon. That is a very real fear that brands have. Think about it in that context also. Amazon is hurting not just other retail companies, Amazon is hurting brands. Hence, the most dangerous company in the world. So what do you guys think about? 3 things. Change is innovative. Supply chain is evolving. The mantra for the future is innovate or incinerate. Perform or perish. Fall in line or fall by the wayside. That is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Amazon is 23 years old today. I'll show you how 20 years can make such a big difference. 20 years back, most of you were born 20 years back. All of you were born 20 years back. Simpler times, things have changed so much in the last 20 years. This was Jeff Bezos, 1st January 1997, when Amazon went public, when they launched their IPO. This is Jeff Bezos yesterday. He looks like a miniature Vin Diesel. This is his actual picture, by the way. Have you guys seen this online? Yes. This has become a meme online. And this is what I think will be the future. 20 years from now, this is what Jeff Bezos will probably look like. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will come to the end of my presentation. I hope this was interesting for you guys, informative. Thank you very much for having me. If you guys have any questions, anything that you want to know, please feel free to ask. Yeah, name and...
I'm Sai Krishna and I'm from GLSCM body. So my question is regarding this, like few years back, Amazon has acquired Washington Post.
Yeah. It's not Amazon, it's Jeff Bezos. It's his personal investment.
So...
Nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. Okay.
But what was your question?
I thought like there was some link, even like they want to get into this journals and stuff, making it...
No, they will. No, they will obviously leverage it through Amazon going forward. They'll offer you Washington Post subscriptions through Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Like
it's
how...
a personal investment, yes. There's Blue Origin, that's another company that is invested in. It's basically a competitor for SpaceX, and they're trying to send a man to Mars. Right? That's his personal investment. But yeah, tomorrow he may offer rocket rides to Amazon Prime customers. No, it's possible, right? Think about it. Yeah, so yeah, it is going to be tied in, but yeah, that's not a part of the Amazon.
So that's all like how they affected this brick and mortar bookshops. Similarly, they
Definitely. You know, newspapers all over the world are closing. Right? Google has come up with an algorithm to basically predict news, local news. You will not have journalists in, say, 5 years. That's it. It's the end of the road for journalists. If anybody is thinking of being a journalist in the future, please drop the idea. I don't know where you're going to be. Anyways, next question, please.
Yeah, basically I want to ask.
Sorry,
not,
name.
yeah, my name is Kedar. I am from GMBA, GLSCM.
Okay.
Basically, I wanted to ask not regarding Amazon, but regarding your own experience, because I think in Midcom you're handling the Middle East markets as well as the African markets.
So I'm not handling. So sales is not my responsibility.
Yeah, whatever, but the supply chain part is of course.
Yeah.
So regarding supply chain, I mean these are all emerging economies. Certain economies in Africa are still underdeveloped.
Yeah.
What, as per your experience, what are the challenges you are facing in the supply chain part of those economies? Because this is America is one side, Africa is another side. What are the actual things you face on the ground?
See, with regards to the Middle East, there are no supply chain problems per se, because it's very organized. Right? I'm not talking about war zones like Yemen and Syria and Iraq, but I'm saying say the GCC for a large part. It's very organized. Warehousing is excellent. Facilities are amazing. They're not very expensive. So managing supply chains in the Middle East is very easy. Process is there, systems are there, companies are there. Hire anybody, get your job done. 1, 2, 3, that's it. Finished. Africa is a whole different ballgame. What people completely ignore is that Africa is not one country. Biggest misconception. And I had that misconception when I joined. Kenya, Ghana, same, no, big deal. No. Kenya's language is Swahili, Ghana's main language is French. Right? There are 55 countries in Africa. Every one of those countries is very, very different. South Africa is a lot like Europe. Kenya is very British because the English had colonized Kenya. West Africa is a lot like France because it was colonized by the French. Central Africa is a lot like Portugal because it was colonized by the Portuguese. So that is where the problem comes. People don't understand that Africa has 55 nations. Infrastructure, big challenge in Africa. Half of these countries don't have roads. Why do they not have roads? Because until about 15, 20 years back, Africa was a war-torn continent. There were civil wars in almost 30 countries out of the 55. How do you build infrastructure there? You can't. Nigeria does not have fixed line. They don't have landlines, just FYI. Africa's most populous country, 200 million people. Population the size of Pakistan. The population of Pakistan, very, very young country. Average age of about 19, 20. No fixed lines. They basically leapfrogged from having no communication system to mobile phone. Cordless phones didn't make a difference. There were no fixed line connections. Why? Because the copper that was used in putting the cables was stolen during the Civil War to make bullets. The copper that was laid down by the military dictatorship for fixed telephone lines was stolen by rebels to make bullets. So Nigeria does not have fixed telephone lines. They had satellite phones and then they had mobile phones. Direct. They've leapfrogged. Africa is the continent to watch out for because they're going to leapfrog. They're going to go from 2G to 4G. 3G did not take off in Africa. They're going to go from 2G to 4G. I sell mobile phones for a living. You know feature phones? You know those Nokia 1083310 type phones? I sell 150,000 units of those phones every month. And my brand started only 3 years back. Nokia still has a 15% market share there. Feature phones. So yeah, very different. So you'll either have the have-nots and those who have everything. There is no middle class in Africa. That's the biggest problem. The middle class is just coming up. So Africa is the continent to watch out for. If there's a product, if there's a service that you want to launch, Africa is the continent to launch it. Because people are hungry for these things. The appetite for e-commerce in Africa is massive. There's a website called Jumia.com. Amazon is nowhere in the picture. Amazon does not exist anywhere except South Africa. Jumia exists in more than 22 countries in sub-Saharan Africa alone. They'll be a tough competitor to Amazon when they come to Africa. Fantastic continent. Very, very fascinating continent. Lot of innovation coming in from Africa. Have you guys heard of M-Pesa? Mobile money? Yes. Where did that come from? Kenya. Exactly. Was it successful anywhere else? No. But that is the default payment standard in Kenya. You can pay your house rent, you can pay utility bills, you can buy products through M-Pesa, through a feature phone, SMS. You know, we were talking about digital happening in India and you know how, you can even make payments through UPI through just a feature phone. This came in Kenya 8 years back. Not new. So yeah, fascinating continent, Africa, to be honest. Lot of challenges. Anybody else? Yeah. Your name?
So good evening. My name is Arjun.
Yeah, don't call me sir. Come.
Yeah, I'm from GMB IT Management.
Right.
So actually, sir, actually Venkat. So in FADM class, so Vittal sir was discussing about discussing this e-commerce companies are not making profits.
Yeah.
So but still, like companies like Amazon, as you described clearly, so they are, investing more in research and development. So can you throw some light why they are, whether they are actually making profits?
They're not making profits. No e-commerce company is making money. I showed you the first slide, right? For a company that's valued at $410 billion, Amazon's profit is 1.16 billion. Shitty investment on paper. But why are companies investing? Why? Because these are investors who are in for the long haul. Your regular venture capitalists will never understand what Amazon is like. Because they want to come, invest money, exit in 3 years, make a 20% ROI, that's their goal. But what Amazon offers is what I told you. They offer them data. You will be able to predict customer behavior. How important is that? Think about it. So it's all about valuation at this point in time, and yes, Amazon is overvalued. Most e-commerce companies are. But e-commerce will be, it's not going to be purely e-commerce, right? It's going to be a fusion of online and physical stores. That is what will add a lot of value. That is when you start seeing returns. Retail is where you make money. Because you can mark up products. And now with technology, they are decreasing costs, so you'll see Amazon's profits being boosted. And Amazon is venturing into so many new things. They've started Amazon Studios. They have their own streaming service like Netflix. Right? Yeah, Amazon shows have won so many Emmys. Jeff Bezos wants to become the first tech mogul to win an Oscar. He might just do it, I don't know. Possible. Right? So yeah, so it will happen. Not now, maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, but yeah, they're in it for a long haul. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Please.
Hi, this is Aditya.
Okay.
From GMBA Marketing.
Thank you for that presentation. It's very evident that Amazon is growing at a very scorching pace, but do you feel there is a trade-off here? Like you quoted that statistic that per employee the turnover is very high, almost
It's not turnover, it's value. It's not turnover. It's just all the market capitalization, not the revenue.
Yeah, per employee value is very high. So, in terms of like I read a lot of pending cases in terms of US, like workers are subjected to very inhuman.
Yeah.
So, is that not a factor worth considering? Or
No, it is a factor. Has a company like Amazon done some borderline unethical things? Of course. They've run so many companies out of business by just losing money. Have they overworked their workers? Yes. They've had to pay huge fines to the US because of that. So what they're doing? More robots, less workers. Problem solved. They're attacking the problem in a different way. They're not fighting it on an ethics platform. They're not fighting it on an ethics platform. They say, okay, you're having a problem the way we work. We don't need more people. But here's a funny thing, right? Most of the 50,000 jobs that Amazon has created this year are low-level, worker-level jobs at warehouse levels, at fulfillment center levels, not at executive levels. So what they're saying is that we need more people as our operations expand. Robots can only get you the product. Robots can't process an order yet. They need people. They've hired 40,000 temporary workers during Thanksgiving last year. 40,000 temp workers is not a joke. It's huge. So yeah, there have been some issues with Amazon with respect to labor conditions and stuff like that. But I think they've taken some steps to remedy that. But that's not to say that Amazon is a saint. They're not. They're not. They're out to finish retail companies, man. They're not a saint. Right? Ruthless company. Ruthless pragmatism is what defines Amazon and Jeff Bezos. You see some of his interviews, he will tell you that I'm going to dominate retail. He said this 10 years back. I will dominate retail in 10 years. He's done that. Right? So yeah, so not a very ethical, it's not the most saintly company, but yeah, but that's the way the world is. That's the way the world is. You check out, if you get a chance, go to any warehouse in Jebel Ali. The conditions that they work under are not easy. 50-degree heat. Most of the warehouses there do not have air conditioning, by the way. In Jebel Ali, in Davza, they do not have air conditioners in warehouses. They have fans. My own warehouse does not have air conditioning. Right? Most warehouses don't even have a ladder. They don't even have a ladder. You know how pallets are taken sometimes? Chairs are stacked on top of each other. The workers stand there. I've seen this in Jebel Ali. They don't have a ladder which costs 400 dirhams. They don't. So yeah, there are problems.
Hello. Yeah, Kedar here again. Again talking about the Middle East. I mean UAE, Bahrain, Saudi, all are building railway infrastructure now, which was not there present ever since. How do you see this as a disruption in the logistics sector over here? Do you really? I mean, how do you see?
Over-investment is pointless. Over-investment is pointless. Dubai already has Jebel Ali. They don't need to invest more in a logistics base. Qatar invested more than $1 billion in setting up a logistics base in Doha. Abu Dhabi is doing that in Kizad. When you travel from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, there's an industrial estate that comes where they're setting up a logistics base. You don't need that much. What does the UAE do? What does the GCC do? They have no production of their own. Primarily an export-driven economy, right? So yeah, they need processing facilities, but they don't need to create hubs for logistics. More, see what will happen. Not now. See, it's very good to have infrastructure, but your industry should keep pace with it. What they're doing to counterbalance it is that they're investing in manufacturing. They're inviting automotive companies to come and set up spare part units here. They've realized this, that they've created too much infrastructure which they're not able to use. So there needs to be that backward thinking that has to go and say that, oh, we need to create manufacturing bases here to leverage our... so it's a good thing in the long run, but in the short term they will feel the pinch of this investment because it's not going to get them returns as fast as they wanted.
But sir, anyways, if you return on investment in infrastructure, it takes a long time to break even. Maybe a railway, maybe a port, maybe a port,
here's
whatever.
The thing, right? They've built these facilities. When did Jebel Ali come in the 70s? Right? Kizad is coming up now. There's a logistics base that they're setting up in Sharjah as well. There's one in Ajman. There's already one in Iraq. Right? They need this. But they will have to wait a little longer than they usually had to wait. The cycle has become longer. That's all. Nothing else. See, because for a new industry to come up also takes time. Right? You can't set up a car manufacturing plant today and say that, tomorrow UAE is the world leader in car production. No. 1 becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 5, becomes 10, becomes 100. That's how incrementally it goes. So yeah, it'll take some time, but it's well worth the investment. In the long run it helps. Anybody else? Yeah, you had a question. Oh yeah, sorry. You. Continue.
Hi, my name is Mohit.
Right.
I'm also from GMBA Marketing. My question is that what is your take on cart discards? Again, coming back to Amazon. In 2016 alone, Amazon had discard, customers selecting products and discarding them worth $4 trillion. So,
$4 trillion.
$4 trillion. Yeah. So we recently had a case study to do on it. So, So is that the reason why Amazon is going forward, doing forward integration?
That's one of the reasons. Yes. That's one of the reasons. See, the most expensive thing in supply chain is reverse logistics. Returns are the shittiest thing to deal with. Pardon my language, but yeah, that's the case. Returns are the worst thing you can deal with because I get phones which are returned, right? From Africa. Imagine you're in a village in the northern part of Nigeria called as Kano, which is Boko Haram territory. I have to basically satisfy a customer who's saying that your phone does not work. Take it back. What do I do with it? I have to, because I promised 100-day free replacement. Not an easy thing to deal with. So yeah, having your retail presence mitigates it.
My question is not on returns. My question is on cart discards. So basically, customers are selecting products online but not buying them. So they're eventually going to the traditional retail and fulfilling their requirements. I'm talking about the cart discards.
Oh, okay. So you mean somebody is just adding it to the shopping cart but not buying it?
Yeah.
See, what this is good. I mean, what this is good for and what this is bad for. I'll tell you. What it is bad for is that Amazon maybe does not have a foolproof retail ecosystem. After all, there are still some products where they've not achieved that level of sophistication where customer decisions can be made online, which is why forward integration is important. But how is this useful? Alexa, your AI knows that these products not fun. So what this helps them do is this helps them make better procurement decisions. So it's a notional loss. It is not an actual loss to the company, it's a notional loss. It's not an actual loss to the company because the customer has not bought the product in the first place. But what this tells them is how can we improve our procurement practices. So in the long run, this is actually going to benefit Amazon more than anybody else. Because they know customer buying patterns better than anybody else. Simple. Right? So cart discards are a problem because it exposes gaps in procurement. But learning in the long term, massive. Very, very big. Yeah, sorry, you had a question. Yes.
Hello, yeah. I'm Snigdha from GMBA, GLSCM. So my question is about the non-Amazon retailers.
Right.
So considering such huge competition from Amazon, what is stopping the other retailers from accepting all the changes? Is it a skill issue? Is there a skill gap or?
Time and money. Two very simple things. Time and money. Online systems are fast, but they take years to implement. Setting up a foolproof online mechanism is very, very difficult. Running an online store, running an e-commerce website is very difficult. Because you will get so many things right. And right now they don't have the time. They're out of time. They're completely out of time. Why is Walmart buying Jet.com? Walmart.com has been in existence for 15 years. Because they realize that they can't keep up with what Amazon is doing. So they are acquiring somebody who is competing with Amazon on an online level. But you need money for it. Jet.com cost them $3.5 billion. How many companies have that kind of money lying around? How many? So yeah, companies which ignored Amazon 10 years back are paying the price now. Sears shutting down. Kroger Foods shutting down. Food Lion might shut down. Carrefour, they're in trouble in France. Not here, but yeah, in France. So it's going to happen. Companies that ignored Amazon 10 years back are paying the price. So it's not an issue of skill. Buying manpower is easy. You can hire the best experts and the best engineers from MIT, IIT, wherever you want. But how fast can they build a system that will compete and innovate at the same pace that Amazon does? For Amazon, it's become a habit. Because that's all that they've done. Where are they going to face challenges is when the acquisition of Whole Foods gets completed. How are they going to manage retail? It's not the same as managing online. Their portfolio of products will become more complex. They will have to deal with fresh foods, perishables. Is there a system in place to manage that? I don't know. So yeah, it's going to work. It's going to impact them both ways. But Amazon has the advantage here.
So are there any factors working in favor of the other retailers
Yeah.
for some time?
Yeah, nobody likes a monopoly. That's the only factor that's working for the others. See, why was Android born? Why is Android popular today? Because Apple was the, actually Apple wasn't. Windows was the world's first smartphone, HTC devices. But Apple basically popularized the concept of a smartphone. But nobody likes a monopoly because not everybody can afford, an iPhone for $650. So Android came up. That's why my mobile band came. Because nobody likes a monopoly. Right? That's the only thing that will work in the other company's favor. Because you can always see, what did Apple do to become what it is today? They basically told everybody that IBM is the villain. Right? You remember the thing different, the big blue, the thing different ad that they launched when they launched the Macintosh. What was that? That was a direct challenge to IBM. They basically said that IBM is the big blue here, IBM is the big daddy, IBM is a monopoly, we will challenge that monopoly. That's how they came into prominence, and look at where Apple is today, look at where IBM is today. IBM has exited the PC business altogether. They sold it off to Lenovo, right? So yeah, it happens. Monopolies are never good. Amazon is trying to become the world's most acceptable monopoly, but even that will not work. There will be challenges. There will be a challenger, and they will compete. You cannot have a monopoly for a long time. It's like a dictatorship, right? Who can live in a dictatorship for a long time? They can't. There has to be some option. There has to be some change. There has to be some freedom. Freedom of choice is very important for customers. That is what is playing in the competitor's favor. You had a question? Cool, chalo, I think we had a good Q&A session. You guys have to go back also. Sorry, this went on for a little longer than expected.
Coming to the end, thanks a lot, Venkat, for this insightful session.
Thank you guys. If there's another session that you guys want me to conduct, please pressurize these guys. I would be happy to do it.
Maybe something for IT.
Oh yeah, wait. I had something to show on data analytics. Right. You have to give me 2 minutes of your time. If the other students want to leave, please feel free. This is mainly for the IT guys, but okay, can you shut the camera off, please? I was serious when I said that I don't want this information leaking. This is my company's data.